captain of the exploration fleet, stood on the bridge of her vessel, watching the massive shape appear on her viewing screen. The ancient starship floated in the darkness between stars, silent and cold. Its hull stretched nearly 2 kilometers long, covered in symbols that no living species could read. The ship belonged to the architects, a civilization that had disappeared long before the people learned to make fire. "This is impossible," whispered Navigator Thresh, his 4 eyes wide with wonder. "An architect vessel, intact after all this time." Pressed her communication device. "Engineering team, prepare for boarding. We must examine this treasure." The team spent 3 days trying to understand the ship. Their finest scientists scanned every surface. Their best engineers examined every system. But the architect technology was too advanced, too different from anything they knew. The power systems remained dead. The engines stayed silent. The great ship was nothing more than a beautiful corpse. "We cannot repair it," Chief Engineer finally admitted. His scales had turned pale with frustration. "The technology is beyond our understanding. The power core alone uses principles we cannot even identify." Felt her heart sink. The discovery of a lifetime, and they could do nothing with it. Then her communication officer approached with an unusual suggestion. "Captain, there is a human maintenance vessel in this sector. They responded to our presence notification." "Humans," made a dismissive sound. "Those primitive creatures. They only achieved space travel 200 years ago. What could they possibly contribute?" But remembered something she had heard about humans. Strange stories from other species. Tales of impossible repairs and unexpected solutions. "Contact them," she ordered. "Ask if they can assist." The human ship arrived the next morning. It was small and ugly compared to vessels, held together with visible repairs and mismatched parts. From this humble craft emerged a single human named. He was short by galactic standards, with dark hair turning at the edges and hands covered in old scars. "So this is an architect ship," said, his voice filled with quiet excitement. "I've read about these, never thought I'd see one." Looked down at the human with obvious doubt. "Engineer, our finest minds have studied this vessel for days. The technology is completely beyond our capabilities. I do not see how you could help." Just smiled. "Mind if I take a look anyway?" The crew watched as the human wandered through the ancient corridors. He touched the walls with his rough hands. He pressed his ear against sealed doors. He crawled into spaces that seemed too small for any intelligent creature to enter. He asked strange questions that made no sense to the scientists. "What does this smell like to you?" he asked once, sniffing at a ventilation shaft. Smell was confused. "We do not use smell for engineering analysis." Right, made notes on a small device. "What about the color of that residue there? Kind of greenish, yeah." By the end of the first day, had filled 3 notebooks with observations. The team exchanged looks of confusion. None of his notes contained equations or technical specifications. Instead, he had drawn pictures, written descriptions of textures and sounds, and made strange comparisons to things on Earth. On the second day, asked for access to the ship's power core. The massive chamber sat in the heart of the vessel, containing technology that the scientists could not even begin to analyze. Complex crystalline structures connected to pathways of unknown material. Energy conduits that seemed to exist partially in dimensions that normal matter could not enter. "Fascinating," said. "We believe this converts dark energy directly into usable power, but we cannot determine how to activate it, or even how to safely examine the conversion process." Walked around the core several times. He lay on his back and looked up at it from below. He climbed a nearby structure to see it from above. Then he sat on the floor and stared at it for nearly an hour. "It's broken," he finally said. Scales flushed with annoyance. "Obviously it is broken. That is why we are here." "No, I mean I can see what's broken," pointed at a section of the crystalline structure. "See that crack there? and the way that conduit is slightly bent. Something hit this room a long time ago. Maybe debris, maybe a weapon. The main structure is fine, but the startup mechanism is damaged. The scientists scanned the areas indicated. To their amazement, he was correct. There was microscopic damage in exactly the locations he had identified. Damage so small that their instruments had dismissed it as normal wear. "How did you see that?" Thresh asked. "Our scanners barely detected it." Shrugged. "Spent 20 years fixing machines back on Earth. Tractors, ships, factory equipment. You learn to look for patterns. The way dust settles, the way metal bends, how crystals fracture. It's not about the technology. It's about understanding how things break." Over the next 3 days, worked on a repair plan. He could not replicate architect technology, so he did not try. Instead, he looked for ways to work around the damage using materials available on the ship. His methods horrified the engineers. He used simple copper wire to bridge gaps in circuits that used metals unknown to science. He sealed cracks with a compound he made from ship rations and engine lubricant. He adjusted the alignment of crystals using a hammer and careful tapping, a technique he called percussive maintenance. "This is madness," protested. "You cannot repair quantum-level technology with hand tools and food paste." "You're right," agreed. "I can't repair it properly, but I might be able to make it work just enough to start." He worked without rest for 70 hours. The crew brought him food that he barely touched. They offered him a sleeping space that he ignored. He talked to himself constantly, sometimes arguing with the ancient machinery as if it could hear him. "Come on, you beautiful old thing," he muttered. "I know you want to run again, just give me a chance here." On the fourth day, gathered the crew in the power core chamber. His repairs looked ridiculous next to the elegant architect technology. Copper wires twisted between crystalline structures. Patches of hardened paste covered cracks in the conduits. A piece of his own ship's hull had been wedged into a gap with remarkable precision. "This might not work," he warned. "And if it does work, it probably won't work for long, but I think we can wake her up." He pressed his hand against a section of crystal that his analysis suggested was a control interface. Nothing happened for several seconds. Then a low hum began deep within the ship. The crystalline structures started to glow with soft blue light. The energy conduits flickered and then blazed with power. The ancient ship was alive. Warning indicators appeared on the instruments. The power was unstable, fluctuating wildly, but it was power where there had been none for 3,000 years. "Impossible," whispered. "Absolutely impossible." Grinned, exhaustion clear on his face. "It won't hold for long, maybe a few days, but you should be able to download data from the ship's memory systems now. Maybe learn how the architects built things. Then you can make proper repairs." Captain approached the human engineer. "How did you do this? We have technology far more advanced than yours. Our engineers trained for decades, yet you accomplished what we could not." Thought about the question carefully. Your people build things to work perfectly. When something breaks, you want to fix it perfectly or not at all. That's admirable. But humans, we grew up on a world that tried to kill us. Our machines broke constantly. Our resources were always limited. We learned that sometimes good enough is better than nothing at all. He gestured at his crude repairs. "Those wire bridges won't conduct energy as well as the original pathways, but they conduct it well enough. That patch won't hold forever, but it holds for now. Sometimes the universe doesn't give you the right tools, so you use the wrong tools in creative ways." The engineers spent the next 2 days downloading everything they could from the architect's ship's memory banks. They recovered technology, history, art, and science from a civilization that had vanished ages ago. Knowledge that would advance the galactic community by generations. When the repairs finally failed and the power died again, was already back on his small ship, preparing to leave. "Engineer," said through the communication channel, "the exploration fleet owes you a great debt. You have given us a treasure beyond measure. What reward can we offer? Laughed. I got to spend a week playing with architect technology. That's reward enough for any engineer. But if you figure out how their engine really works, send me the specifications. I'd love to build one properly someday. After he left, stood on the bridge beside Captain, watching the human vessel grow smaller in the distance. I do not understand them, admitted. Their technology is crude. Their methods are chaotic. They solve problems in ways that seem to violate basic engineering principles, yet somehow they succeed where we fail. Nodded slowly. I spoke with a commander last year. She told me something interesting about humans. She said that when they face an impossible problem, they do not see impossibility. They see a challenge that no one has solved yet. They do not ask, "Can this be done?" They ask, "How can I do this with what I have?" A dangerous way of thinking, said. It ignores limitations. Yes, watched the human ship jump to faster-than-light travel, disappearing in a flash of light. And sometimes ignoring limitations is exactly what a situation requires. The story of and the architect's ship spread across the galaxy in the following months. Other species began requesting human engineers for impossible projects, not because humans had better technology or more knowledge, but because humans had something rarer and more valuable. They had the stubborn creativity to make broken things work again. And in a universe full of ancient mysteries and forgotten machines, that talent was worth more than all the advanced technology in the galaxy.